All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to get started on the pre-event. Um, and so, without further ado, I'm just gonna jump right in. This is going to be kind of, it's another long story. I'm probably gonna talk fast because I want to get to the main shit. But there's there's everything in between. And so, so I had been in this town for probably a couple years before I started kind of talking to this girl. And I knew of her because I hung out at McDonald's all the time, because like I had a lot of free time. My job is seasonal, and so on my off periods there's nothing to do in this town, so I would just go and hang out at McDonald's. And I would always just sit in my vehicle, and I would just get coffee because coffee's cheap at McDonald's. And I would just hang out in my vehicle and listen to Megadeth and smoke cigarettes and drink coffee and people watch and just watch people, because there's like nothing to do in this town. Like it's a crazy town. So she worked at McDonald's, and that's how I became familiar with her. And so there were times where I would go into McDonald's. That's when I first saw her. And she really made a big impression on me because I felt really bad for her. And the best way to describe it is like if you imagine like seeing a puppy that's just lost and it's starving and it's homeless and it's wandering aimlessly. Your gut instinct or whatever is you want to take that puppy and love it and fucking nurse it back to health and all this shit. And so that was my my first impression of her, was just like kind of almost heartbreaking. It was like this poor girl, and so I made it a point to be friendly to her because of those reasons. It's like I just so anyways, and so. But I didn't like pursue it really or anything like that. So I just when I would see her, I was always like, hey, what's up, man? Like, glad to see you, blah blah blah, this kind of shit. So that's how this all started. And and over the course of a couple years, I'd made good relations with basically the upstanding people in this town. I'll just say this because there aren't a lot of viewers. I'm a longtime member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I go to meetings. And so as soon as I got here, I'm going to meetings. And after being here for a couple of years, I got to know a lot of people. And generally AA people they're not witches. They're not wandering out into the desert and blowing their brains out and blasting off on DMT. They're not like these insane fucking crazy people. They're just more level-headed people, and a lot of them are actually very successful. I've met authors and all kinds of so my friends in this town are like probably the most decent people in this town that you'll ever meet. Even like longtime legends of this town, that just happen to have gotten sober and shit. And all this stuff. So those are the people that I associate with, like mostly. I'm always open to interacting with other people, but less and less as things get crazier and crazier. I'm really not into socializing with people because there's so many crazy people. Anyways, so that's just like some background. But anyways, me and my friends. Some of my friends were closer, and like there was actually one or two of my friends that we would go hang out at McDonald's together, right? And he's like an old biker dude, like a hardcore fucking old school former fucking biker gang, former gang member and shit, like somebody you don't want to fuck with kind of guy. And so me and him would hang out at McDonald's a lot and shit. And then we found out, well, first there's this creepy guy, and he was hanging out, and he was doing all this fucking weird shit at the McDonald's. That was what first caught our attention to him. We're like, this guy's a piece of shit, right? Well, anyways, maybe a month after that is when we started hearing rumors that he was stalking this poor girl, this girl that I describe as the lost, homeless, starving puppy that's wandering aimlessly. Well, this creepy piece of shit motherfucker is stalking her. That's what the rumor is, right? So because I'm always hanging out at McDonald's anyways, always in the parking lot though, and by myself or with a trusted friend, but that's it. And so, but I'm there often, listening to Megadeth and drinking my coffee and smoking cigarettes and shit like this, right? Usually either by myself or only with a trusted friend or whatever. And so then I see this girl, like she's like comes out and stuff, and then she was like talk hi once, just hi whatever, and just small talk shit whatever. And so then I'm like, dude, I've heard something about that there's some guy stalking you or something. And so that's when she explains it to me, that this guy, he's a piece of shit. He's stalking her at her job, and she's reported it to her job and all this shit, and they're not doing anything about it. And he keeps showing up all the time. He's there fucking all day. And that the reason is because, so what happened is that he was letting her drive his vehicle because she doesn't have a license and she's trying to learn how to drive, which is kind of odd, of course, for her age. But whatever. I mean, she was like 29 at the time, or 30 maybe. Yeah, I think 30. And so I guess she had been driving with him for like a year though, like once a week for a year. And then what she told me happened is that he started, making sexual advances towards her and acting real creepy. And so that's when she stopped it. She's like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And then once she stopped it, then that's when he started stalking her and getting crazy and shit. So I'm like, okay. Now I have to go into some of my background. I have like 10 years experience in like social work. I was a mandated reporter. And I have all kinds of training on how to deal with crisis and all this kind of stuff. Okay, whatever. That's a whole other story. But anyways, because I have all this background and field experience and training in, people in crisis and stuff like this and everything, all my training and experience kicked in when she's like talking about this, that she's being stalked. And like, for example, one of the things, because I worked with people in crisis and shit like this, is anytime somebody would report something like that, like if somebody in my job were to report to me that they're being stalked, I have to take that seriously. One of the reasons, like being a mandated reporter, you have to take all these kinds of things seriously, no matter what you think or your opinion is. And depending on the situation, something like stalking, of course, I would have to take it seriously in my job, no matter what my opinion on the topic was. Even if I thought the person is full of shit and lying, I still have to go through the motions and do everything, and really try to push myself to actually believe this person rather than just allowing my opinions to dictate what I do and shit. So all my training and experience and field experience and all this shit just kicked in, just kind of naturally kicked in, and so I knew how to the more appropriate way to to kind of like get involved in this situation. And so I just let her know, like, that I mean, I'm a friend of hers, and I have friends, and we kind of know what's going on, and don't worry, we got your back and stuff. And then I also offered, because I was on my job is seasonal, I was on downtime, so I offered that she could drive my vehicle. She could practice using my vehicle once a month if she wanted to, or once a week, and she agreed. And so then we started driving together. So when we start driving together, that's when I started to get familiar with the whole situation. And so she was like, she wasn't married, but she'd been with this guy for like 7 years. She had 2 children with him. And so I started learning all this while we're driving, because I go pick her up. I met the guy, the father of her children. I met her children, and then we would go drive. And I would just kind of try to like teach her how to drive a little bit, and stuff. And so and so then that's when the story starts to get weird with the stalking situation. But there's a lot to it. Like, so we started driving, and then I started noticing that the guy actually, there were signs that he really was stalking her, because we would run into him. Like, it was just weird, and she was actually saying that she thought that he had bugged her phone, which is relevant because later on I realized I think that this crazy bitch bugged my phone. But anyway, so some of the first things that I learned, well, I think one of the first things that I learned is that she told me that this guy that was stalking her was actually a friend of her baby daddy's, of the father of her children, the guy that she's living with and in a relationship with, that she has 2 children with. And we'll call him Victor. That this guy, the stalker, we'll call Dale, is friends with Victor. And then I'm like, wait, what? And then she's telling me that her baby daddy, Victor, thinks that he's not stalking her, and is telling her that Dale isn't stalking her, and telling her that she's crazy and that she needs to go get like mental help for thinking that Dale, his friend, is stalking her. So I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like tripping out. Like, what? Your own fucking, you're like, basically your husband is taking the side of the guy that you claim is stalking you, right? Like, so it's already getting crazy. Like, shit's getting crazy. And I'm like, oh my God. So then I'm realizing I have to be even more professional. I have to take an even more professional approach to this, and be, and just be kind of non-biased and really objective in this situation. So then I find out other stuff. So I meet him, and I meet the children, and actually one of the first meets that we had, they were talking about that they were involved in sex magic and shit, and I didn't really think nothing of that, because they're a couple, people, whatever people do in their bedroom is their business, and maybe this guy feels threatened because I'm hanging out with his wife or something, and which is totally understandable. So when they were talking about sex magic, I was just kind of like, whatever. And they were talking about astral project, like the guy totally believes in astral projection, and she's all into it, and they believe all this, they're into all this weird shit. And she believes in numbers, like numerology, and she was claiming that she was seeing all these new numbers synchronicities, which were confirming that Dale is stalking her and all this stuff. So they believe in all this stuff. It's like an imbalance. Like they lack rational thought and reason, and they're totally like all about intuitive thought process and beliefs and stuff, and they're kind of abandon reason and stuff. And so I was like, all right, this is whatever. I've been around these kind of people a lot, so it's just like, okay, here we go, here we go again. And they're talking about she's really into tarot. He used to be into tarot. He's got a fucking Aleister Crowley tarot deck. They're all into art. He's like all into art, and his art sucks. And he's like really believes his art is good. And he's like showing me all these art pieces that he's done, and talking about how they've been on these doing these festy hopping. And the part of it is in pursuit of his career as an artist. He's trying to get in with the Alex Grays and people like this that are at some of these DMT festivals. And then that's when they're talking about DMT. They blast off on DMT. They manufacture DMT in their RV with their 2 children living in the RV and all this shit. So there's all this crazy shit. Like, and this is just in a quick meeting with him and her and their children. And then while this is all taking place, their 7-year-old, whose name is Cosmo, comes up to me, and he's a real cool kid, and he says, hey, he's like tapping my knee, and he says, guess what I got for my 7th birthday? And I'm like, what'd you get for your 7th birthday? And he says, my mom and dad gave me DMT. And I was like, and then of course the dad starts running damage control, and he's like, Cosmo, you're not supposed to tell people that, you know, don't tell people. And I'm just like going, oh my God, here we go. So this is these people, like they manufacture DMT with their children in the RV. And okay, now here's another thing. Like, here's another dynamic though, is that she always acts scared around him, and he always acts like he is like, you know, he always acts like an asshole to her. So there's an element of abuse. And then she's telling me when we're driving in the van that you know, that the guy that's stalking her, her husband Victor, is taking his side and telling her that she's crazy. So this is like getting really bad really fast. It's like going to like, oh my God, what in the fuck have I got myself into? This is totally insane. Okay. So you'll see there's this black cloud around her. She's got the abusive husband and the abusive husband's friend who's stalking her. So there's like this black cloud around her. And she's always carries herself as like this meek, quiet, shy, easily manipulated, you know, type of person. All this stuff, like, and so she's very scared and all this. And so it's just more of this thing about this poor puppy that's being abused and wandering around starving and aimlessly and homeless, and you just want to nurse the puppy back to health and get it to a good home. You know, it's like this poor thing. And so it's just this constant thing with her where she's just this poor innocent victim. And you know, it just gets deeper and deeper. And then she starts, you know, months go by. And this guy is still stalking her apparently and stuff, and then I'm finding out more about her ex, or not her ex, her soon-to-be ex, and that he controls her phone. I found out that he's like $10,000 in arrears on child support from a child that he had with some other girl, and because he owes so much money in child support, he can't get a job because the law will fucking pick him up. So he doesn't have a driver's license. He can't get a driver's license. So he can't get a job. He can't get a driver's license. And so this girl, so he is basically like this girl's handler, directing this girl to, you have to go work because I can't. And you have to get a license because I can't. And the reason I can't is because the system is evil and is out to get me. And so we're hiding out. And they were like literally hiding out. Like, they didn't have any friends. She didn't have any friends. Neither did he. Except for this guy that's allegedly stalking her. And he would just hide out. And he was supposedly he was homeschooling the two boys, the 6 and 7-year-old, which started to become more and more creepy. And then I'm finding out, like, she's telling me that, you know, he's locking the younger boy in the bathroom and for hours because he's not doing his homework or this and that. Like, there's just abuse. And then she's telling me stories about he's hit the boy. The younger boy, he doesn't like the younger boy. He calls the younger boy a dumpster baby. He thinks that the younger boy isn't his, even though she got he forced her to get a maternity test or whatever, and it proved that the boy is his. He still insists that it isn't. And so I've gotten over my head, obviously, you can see. And so I'm just trying to maintain, like, that I am just this neutral person. I'm here to support you because you claim you're being stalked. But now it's getting deeper. Like, your husband doesn't believe you and is taking the side of the alleged stalker, telling you you're crazy. And then it's just getting worse and worse. And to the point where I finally, after like a couple months, I just had to tell her. And I was really refraining from telling her this for a long time. And I finally just did it. I said, look, I just asked her, do you have someone that you can talk to? Like if you have stuff going on at home, like do you have someone that you can trust that you can talk to? And she said her reply was that the last time she confided in somebody, all it did was make all of her problems worse with this guy, with her husband or whatever you want to call him. And so I was like, okay, well, look. And so then I admitted to her, I said, what you really need someone that you can trust, that you can talk to. And really, ideally, it needs to be a woman, you know. And because, you know, there's some serious shit going on, I have to admit. It looks like there's some fucked up shit going on in your home, you know. And then I said, if you end up needing somebody to talk to, I can be available, but really you need to find a woman that you can trust, that you can talk to. And then she was like, okay, thanks. Right? And so then that just opened up the floodgates even more. And then, incidences started happening. I can't remember what exactly incident it was, but it got to the point where this was becoming serious. So now let me go to the next one.